Welcome back to this series on building a movie recommender system using machine learning. And we've started working on it from downloading the data and processing it and training an experimental model using our Python notebook. And we took that out into training a standard model using our regular train model.py file and connected it into MLflow where we log the model metrics and log the model and register the model to be able to use it in production. And we moved ahead to build a fast API. And now we are building the React application that is going to consume the API. For us to use React.js, we need to first of all have Node.js, and that is what we are doing here. So if you want to install Node.js, let's say you don't have it installed, you can just come to node.js or nodejs.org and download it here and install it. In my case, I have it installed already, so I don't have to do that all over again. And I can check the version of my Node.js that I have by coming here. I think we need to clear this. It is a trash application. I can close the terminal. Let me kill this terminal and use a new terminal. Right. So I will check my node. So this automatically activated an environment for me that I don't want. So I'll just say conda deactivate and activate the environment that I want. And say conda activate and say ml ops. And now I have the environment that I want for my Python. And now to check my Node.js, I'll just say node -v. And you can see I have the version 22 of Node installed on my PC. I'm using a MacBook, and that is where my Node is installed. So to have a React application, the first thing is to create the React app. So it's just like loading like a set of folder that has been created for us by React for us to use to create a React application, or for us to have a web application built on React. So to do that, we just say nps create and we say React app, and we can give it a name. So for me, I can say movie app, and I'll do that and just wait for that to happen. So while that is getting set up, I will explain a few things on why did we use React for this application. The other options we could have used, we could use Streamlit, which is made ready. It's very easy to use. You just plug and play, and whatever you are doing is just directly in Python. It is free, and for you to get some advanced feature, you need to use the Pro version. So, but to have this kind of total control about how my application is working, some customizations, I prefer using the React application. So even though I'm not a full stack web developer, I'm a machine learning scientist myself, and I research into a machine learning model that are applicable in agricultural environment, I prefer to use React application for my front end. Why? Because there's a lot of support, and I can easily just search and read the documentation and apply whatever I need per time. So that is why. So you have options. You can use React, you can use Streamlit, and you can use other things that you deem fit to serve your API for a user to benefit from it. So our React is still loading. So when we have our React application, we need to have the necessary API key that we need for our application to run. And the API key that is important for us to have is this OMDB API key. OMDB API key. And why do we need OMDB API key? It is because when a movie is recommended, to have that Netflix-like experience, it would be nice to show the poster and other information about the movie. And that can be found in the OMDB database. And we need the API key before we are able to use it. So I've generated the API key before. So if you go to this link, omdbapi.com/API-key.aspx, you can just use the free, put your name, put your email, your last name, and just type the use, and you will get the API delivered to your email. So I'm not doing that all over because I've done it before. So we need that to be able to show the poster and other information about the movie. So how it works is our model, we produce the recommendations, that is those movies that I want to see. Then the IMDb API will pull the poster and other information about the movie and show it to us. So that is how our application is going to work. Now, our React app is well set up. So we can go back into our application. So you can see API hacking. So we need our environment file. And here I'm going to be copying this environment sample, env sample. I'll copy it into my React application. So I go into my movie app and I will copy the environment sample. So this is a sample of the environment. So you can, let me rename it. So it's supposed to be .env, okay? And you put your OMDB API. So I'm going to be adding my API key to this. So I'm not going to be showing my API right here. So you can get your own API and just add it within this string. So maybe your API is sysarty, then you can easily add it there. So I will add my API. Okay. So now that I've added my API into our environment, then we can go ahead and begin to do other things with our React application. So you can see movie app, and we can see other things that are within our application. So just to see React, we can use npm start to run our React app. I'll go into the movie. Before I could run npm start, I need to run it within the movie app, and I say npm start, and that is going to run the application. And there we should have our application running in our browser. Okay, so this is the local host that we get from our code. So using this, or we can also use this to run it on our network. So that is our React application. But for us to use our React app, we need to update some things within the app template, or what we call the boilerplate. So in this React boilerplate that has been given to us, what we need to do is within the source folder, and within the source folder, we need to update the app.css and the app.js. Every other thing, we just leave it the same. In the app.css is where we have the styling for our application, and the app.js is where we have the logic and the interface setup. So the app.js is a component, the app.css is the styling for that component, and you can create other components depending on how you want to set up your app structure. So, and the index.js is like the root of the application, which is the first thing, the entry point into the application whenever you load it on the web browser. That is why you see that the app is imported within the index.js. So I'm not going to be going deep into React on this, but if you want to really know much about React, you can just go to React.js documentation and check out the information on React.js. So learn React, and you can learn the different things about React right from there. So, but I'm just going to be building out the application that we have. So I already built out what we need, but I'm just going to copy and paste the code here and run through them in chunks so that we can spend short time doing it. So I'm going to clear everything I have in this app.js, and I will use what I have currently in the app.css, and use what I have in the styling. I'm not going to be touching anything here. I go back to my app.js, and I'll clear whatever I have there and go chunk by chunk into what I need to do within app.js. So within app.js, the first thing is I need to import my required modules and stylings and whatever I need to import. So the first line is importing this use state. So the use state is just like what we did in the app.state with the done in Fast API, help us to manage the state of the system. So what is changing, what we want to store into state and use in other parts of the application. So that's how the use state work, but there are other better explanation when you check the React documentation. And this app.css that is being imported here is this component needs to use a styling, and the styling is the app.css, so we import it into the app.js. Now that we have that, the next thing will be to have our environment, our environmental variables. So these are our environmental variables. That is process.env react.mdb. So what this will do is to go into this env that we created and pull the React app omdb API key, then the API URL, which is what we used for our Python Fast API. So this is linked to our Python API, Fast API. That's where we got it from, and we can see that somewhere here. Movie recommender, you can see /recommend. That is where that is coming from. The reason this is showing here and not just pulling it from the environment variable is this is acting as a fallback. So in case it's unable to get the API URL from here, it can then just use this as a fallback. So this is like, or use this. If this is not available, then you can use this as a fallback. Now we move to the next thing, which is to have our app function. And our app function, I will go in the full app chunk and just run through it quickly. All this code, we have it. This code is available on the GitHub repository, and you can go line by line. So within the app, what we need is to have like define the state. And the way to define the state is using the use state. And here we can have the title, set title. And how this is working is the default state is empty. So if there's no title, we can't do anything because it is with the title that we can search for the movie recommendation. And for the top K, which is the top the number of movie that you want to have, the top recommendation. So the default is 5. So if the default is 10, which means if I don't insert any value in my top K or in the top movie recommendation, it's going to recommend 5 by default. So that is what we are going to have. So that is what this part is doing. And others are doing other functions. And this movie's state is like what is letting us to know, okay, what movie is being searched for, what are those information. It's going to store the state so that we can use it. So the undo submit is what happens whenever a movie that we submitted for search and the response that is expected. So here, if there's an error, it's going to tell us to check if the API is running, and it's going to give us a specific status of the error. So that is the summary of the first chunk, and I'll go to the next chunk. And the next chunk is how we fetch the movies. So I will fetch the movies. This is the next chunk. But this is also part of the app function. So it is not separate. So I will just tab in. So everything is part of that function. So we fetch the movie. And what do we use to fetch the movie? What is received for movie search is the raw title. So when we have the raw title, it will first check, does the OMDB API key exist? So if the OMDB API key exists, it will move into the next step. If the OMDB API key does not exist, it wouldn't do any other thing than to just return the title and the ID to us. So that's all. So we just have that, and the year will be empty, the poster will be empty, the rating will be empty, and the plot will be empty. So in essence, we're not going to have anything that is showing the details of the movie from OMDB. That's all. But if that is not true, that is, if this is not true, it will move on into then searching through OMDB using the API key that has been supplied to then fetch all the information that we need. So if everything is correct, it's going to get the title and store it in a JSON file, the year into this JSON.year, the poster, and let's say it gets the title, it gets the year, and the poster is not there, it will return an empty string. Also, if the year is not available, it will return an empty string. That is, even if we're able to connect to the OMDB API, but what we are looking for is not there, it will return an empty string. And here also return an empty string. The rating, if it's not available, return an empty string. The plot of the movie, if it's not available, return also an empty string. So that is that. So all these parts just undo the error. In case there's a fetch error, it's unable to search for it, just return the title of the movie and the ID, leaving every other thing empty. So that is that. That's what we have up to this point. Now, this is the logic. This is the JavaScript understanding all the logic of what should be fetched, what information should we get. So all this is going to be getting everything. If all is successful, it's going to return the JSON, a file that can then be served into the main front end. So that's when we now have the return. And this return is where we are going to have the front end of the application. So you can see my auto-suggest is already showing the front end, just like the HTML that we have, but in React, it works differently in how the class is defined. For the class, you have the class name as the class instead of the regular class that we define in HTML, CSS, the vanilla, the regular HTML, CSS that we use. So I'm just going to copy all that, what needs to be returned up to this point. So I'm going to copy that. We need to have it somewhere. It is within the return. So I'll paste it there. Now, having that, I'll start explaining from the return, the point of the return. And we have our app root, of course, as the class name. We have our logo, which is like the Mflix. Just write the text as the logo. Then we have our tagline, is the movie recommendation powered by AI. So you can change that. You have the hero title, then you have the hero subtitle. So the hero title is like find your next movie, what shows on the home page. Then type a movie title, show how many recommendations. We have that. Then we have the search form itself. Then the search form, you can see now, whenever you submit the search form, it will call this logic, that is this button function of undo submit that was created earlier right here. So that will be used for the search when that happens. So it's not like an on-click event in vanilla JavaScript. Then all things being equal, the field label is like the movie title. Then whenever it returns the output, we're going to have an heading like the top movie that is showing as part of the label. And if there's any error, it's going to help us know that OMDB API key is not set, so poster and extra info will not be shown. It's going to tell us that is something is wrong. So all this just undo like system response, system state, and everything. So this is the way you would do it, like a standard application, so that you really know what is wrong within your application without always checking your console all the time. So you get a warning banner. So that is that up to this point. Now, the next thing would then be the movie card. So if you look at the front end, you can see here that we're calling like a movie card component, even though it is a component within a component. So we're calling like a movie card component, or what you can call a function within the app.js, app.js. And we are yet to create the movie card. So we need it. So if we check our application, if I go to the browser and we check our application, okay, we have the React app. Do you see? It says compilation problem. And what is the compilation? You can see it said export default imported as app was not found. .app modulars no export. And secondly, you can see movie card is not defined. That means we've not created a component of the movie card. The movie card component is yet to be created. And we can fix that easily. So we'll come back and I'm going to copy the movie card component and copy it outside here. We could have actually done this earlier at the top, but it can also stay here as a component that can be called at any point. So the code is not running like in this order where we can't call movie card before it is created or before when it comes after the function where we are consuming it. And that is the beauty of React. So the movie card component is going to take in the movie. So this movie is what is containing like all this information that the movie card needs to show. It will get the title from this input, this parameter movie. It will get the title, the year, the poster, the rating, the plot, all information that we are getting from the OMDB API, and it will return them in a very beautiful and well-designed card that we've defined and set up in our CSS. So that is all that there is about the movie card. So if you go back to our application and check, do you see the error for the movie card is gone? But now we are still having the export error, because if you don't fix the export issue, the index.js is unable to import what we need, which is this app from dot/app. So we need to export this app in the end. So, and to do that, we just say export default. So let me follow my auto suggest right here and just say export default app. And now our application should be able to run. So something important to note is for our application to run, we need to have the API running in Fast API. That needs to be running. And also we need to have MLflow running at the same time, because the Fast API is getting the model from MLflow and it is running before it could serve it. And the web application can then be able to benefit from the API. So the two should be running before you can run the application successfully. So if you don't have this running and you're watching just this video from the 5th episode, which is this application development in React, you need to go back from the episode 1 to the episode 4 to try to build it out and follow the process so that it can be clear. So let's see. And yeah, this is our application. So let me search true crime and I click enter. Wow, you see top 5 movie. I could see the rating, I could see the plot, for childhood, I could see all those descriptions of the movie. Isn't it beautiful? I can search for top 10. No, this is 0. I can search for top 10. And if we have 10 recommendations, and the beautiful thing you see, it's unable to find a poster for fear, so it returns no poster, just like what we defined in our application. So you can see no poster. So that's something beautiful. And I believe you've been able to learn something. So we have our Mflix developed and it is working fine. Our model is working, our API is working well. And I believe you've been able to learn something interesting through this series. So this is the point where we come to the end. If you've learned something tangible, feel free to like, share, and also subscribe so that you can get notified whenever I upload new videos. And if you are really interested in learning Python and machine learning or data science, I have other videos that's on this channel on Learn with Meshack that you can also learn from and apply in your daily data science experience. So thank you for following through. It has been a fun experience teaching this tutorial and helping you learn the whole process. Bye.